My Love of Life Energy is a podcast created by Anna Scott. Anna knows that every human being sees life uniquely. In this podcast, she will talk to people and learn from them. These conversations are to shine the brilliance of each human being she speaks to. Join her. After each exploration, you will expand on your insights and see truth and beauty.
Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to my podcast, My Love of Life Energy. And today I have the great honor of speaking with a colleague of mine, Michael McDonald, and he is a transformational coach extraordinaire. And I met the story I love. He doesn't know this story. I don't know if he knows this story. Is that I heard about Michael before actually talked to him. I was in a class with him, and a woman got on a call with me or was doing something. She said, "Oh my God, I met the most amazing man. His presence and the quiet of him was so." And then sure enough, I met him and I go, "Oh, you're this person." So with that, Michael, welcome. It's great to have you today.
Thank you. Oh, I love that. I love that that's how the first indirect contact you had with me was.
Yeah, somebody speaking your virtues
Mm-hmm.
before you had spoken anything.
Yeah, my ego loves that.
What do you love about it?
Like, there's something just so satisfying that, like, I'm impacting a room even before I enter it.
I always love it. A teacher of mine said, "What does your presence say without you saying anything?" And that's what you remind me of.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I'm curious, how, like, have you always had that, or where did you understand the power of presence?
Oh, I did. I definitely did not always have that. I think I did being quiet as a kid. Like, so there was a quiet removed strategy. But these deeper levels of presence, ground, space, not having really much content going on, that's really from maybe like the last 4 or 5 years. I'm almost tempted to say of development, but it's more like undevelopment.
I mean, that's so funny. I agree with that, but say more about that, because I think what you're pointing to is profound.
Like, it's the more that I've seen my stories, and instead of like the switch compared to most transformational work that I've been around and almost all of psychology, instead of seeing stuff that's going on within me and then thinking I need to do something about it, like I need to compensate for it, or I need to fix it, or I need to take that out and swap in something better. I've been seeing more and more deeply over the years, there's something even more valuable underneath all the stories, which for a lot of people is kind of a scary notion, because, like, well, but if I'm not thinking anything, or if I don't have a personality, or if I'm not doing anything, then there's this horrible nothingness there. And I found out that the nothingness is not at all horrible. It's incredibly blissful. It's incredibly intelligent. It's incredibly, it's like infinite resource. It's actually common sense and creativity and the source of all inspiration. And I think, like, just as I've done sort of work or unwork on myself, I've let go of trying to add more content, and I've gotten better at just letting go of content.
Mm. I'm laughing because that's such the antithesis of our culture.
Yeah. And that's even the antithesis of almost all psychological and transformational culture, too, which is
Mhm.
just like more evolved versions of rearranging the content
Yeah.
or subtler content,
Mm.
higher level content.
Yeah, cleverer content,
Mhm.
prettier content.
Mhm.
I love what you said, and I think that there's something, I mean, profound about nothingness and being scared of it.
Yeah. Because I was like, I've seen, like, you can't actually be scared of something that you don't know.
Mm.
You need to make up something in order to be scared of it.
Mm.
I often use the metaphor with clients when they're talking about jumping off the cliff or doing something scary, like there's some edge that they're up against. Um, and I like the metaphor of, instead of it being the edge of a cliff that you're about to jump off of, it's more like a wall of fog.
Mm.
And you authentically do not know what's on the other side.
Mm.
There might be dragons there. It might be horrible.
Mm.
Like, that jumping into the unknown might be a really unpleasant experience. It might be not what you want. It might be amazing things. It might be completely dull and boring. It might be just the same thing, except now you're no longer scared of it because you took the step.
Mhm. Oh,
And
there's
like we,
something. Go ahead. Sorry.
yes, and we project onto that wall of fog. Um, and it says a lot about someone, like, what's the relationship with the unknown?
Mm.
I think I heard someone say, like, you can tell a lot about someone by how they describe what their relationship with the universe is, or with God is, or like whatever mystical greater than them or other. Because that actually tells you a lot about their personal psychology.
Say more. That's interesting. I had never heard that, but I love it.
It's like a mirror.
Mm.
Like, the unknown is a very good mirror. If um, if you don't know what's going to happen and you assume that it's like, oh, that means that this terrible thing is going to happen. It's like, okay, I'm going to be rejected, or that I'm going to feel insecure, or that's going to hurt me financially, or that's going to hurt my reputation. Like, it instantly just reflects the biggest stories in the psychology.
Yeah. I see how have you ever colored in colored books? Coloring books?
Mm-hmm. So it's
Like
been
our
a
mind
while.
loves, but our mind loves to color in. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is different about me than most, and I'd, I'd posit that it's more natural, even though it's less normal.
Mm.
Um, I'm having more and more trust in the unknown. I'm having more and more trust in the let's see.
Mm. Oh God, I can feel it feels like when you said that, I feel like in talking to me.
The audio just like bleeped
Oh,
out. So I
I,
heard blank was talking to me, which is perhaps
like a little,
perfect.
yeah, fill in the blank. Um, it's like a little kid, like the excitement of it all.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's what life is like.
Mm,
Um, like the more that we're, or like the less invested we are in our little dramas or personalities, it's more and more like kid in a candy store type
mm,
reality, rather than student trying to pass an exam, which is going to decide the rest of their life.
mm, mm. It reminds me of like kids when you're a kid, like you remind me of a kid in a science experiment just trying something and seeing what happens just for the fun of seeing what happens. Not like any outcome. It's like, wow, if I try this, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the momentum's been picking up on that because things have been working out well when I do that.
Mm,
Counter to the very popular stories around me, all the cultural stories, most of the stories that clients have coming in. Um, yeah, when I go and try things that I'm inspired to try, it usually my life becomes more miraculous.
mm. What do you mean by that? Because I can feel it. But I'd like you to we can all go with our thinking of what miraculous means. And what do you mean by that?
Yeah. I, th- I think of miracles in terms of not grandiose, and also not like I control the world with my mind. I think that's
Mhm.
a common psychological trap. Um, but it's like those little synchronicities, like, oh, I was just thinking about a person and then they contact me.
Mhm.
Or I end up getting overlapping references, like all of a sudden, and multiple people I'm talking to or things that I'm reading, they're all talking about Seneca or something. Like there's threads. Um, I do something and it works.
Mm.
Um, as an example, recently, I'm currently enrolling a coaching business school, and as soon as I really decided to do it, I got a random person connecting with me on Facebook who says doesn't really use social media, but he's an intuitive coach, and it just felt like reaching out to me for some reason. It's like, and instead of like, oh my god, that's so unusual, I think, oh, of course, like that's
Yeah.
actually positive feedback. It's sort of like the little nudge of keep going.
Mm. It's like if we have what I'm hearing is if I have nothing on my mind, I get to see what happens and follow. I get to follow and see what happens with life.
Yeah, and cool things start happening, and they pick up momentum as well. It's kind of interesting because eventually you start getting into the territory of like, well, how good can you handle it? What if we
Mm.
give you this opportunity? What if we give you this opportunity? What about this? Or even the test of like that nudge of you kind of know that it's time to change, to massively change direction. Like, are you going to listen then? Yeah. And in my experience, and from what I hear from all the other people, or like all the other friends who have a similar depth of understanding, um, cooler and cooler things happen. like following this inner guidance, this inner GPS, the little helpful nudge in the moment. And not, I do a lot less trying to figure out my future. I even get kind of annoyed when people try to get me to tell them my future goals. Like, what are your goals for this year? What are your goals for the next 3 years, 5 years? Like, I, if I knew, I would be just limiting this.
Mhm. Hmm. It reminds me, the other day this is I was walking and I had this insight about when I get what I want, or like have a vision for what I want, I stop seeing what's possible or the surprises of life.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
stop looking.
It's so easy to just hop back into the map. Like, it's so easy to think that social media is social.
That's interesting. Say, what do you mean by that? That's really interesting.
um, like thinking that you can scroll through your Facebook feed as if just scrolling through the feed and maybe liking or maybe commenting is going to help build those relationships.
Mm, mm. Wow, you just opened up something so deep. Because what I see, I mean, like right now, we're in a connection, we're in a relationship. And the quality of this conversation is very different than scrolling through and liking or commenting.
Mhm.
There isn't this, it's still an energy exchange, but the energy exchange is like just like a little like deep, like a ping, whereas this is like I feel like we're in a pot on a slow cook and
Mhm.
simmering and seeing what's going to bubble up. And it's a different quality of energy. It's a different amount of energy.
Yeah. It reminds me because a lot of my original work, uh, like as I was going pro, was relational work. I would lead relational alchemy workshops, and it was similar to authentic relating. But I noticed like my focus was different than most relational work that I had been around, and really different than most of the relational work that I still see around. Because a lot of that's focused on content still.
Mhm.
Uh, it's focused on getting the content out, the content being seen. Um, and I was really interested in just what had people feel closer, like really just having participants in an event eye gaze, layering in a bit of like guided meditation facilitation to help them drop the surface thinking and just be with someone.
Mm. It's funny. So I can feel myself when we're in this conversation, and I believe it's true with you too, is I have such a deep feeling and connection to myself. And I feel
Mhm.
the intimacy or the beauty of us. But it's not because we did anything. We're just both really present with ourselves. And what the viewers can't or the listeners can't see is that your cat has been around you. I don't know if she's still on your lap.
Right now, but she was here for the first
Your
like
pervert.
half.
And my dog was here too. And so they could feel all of this energy and they wanted part of it.
Yeah. And in a way, we're hanging out in this beautiful feeling that's so many people in the world are striving for, hungering for, and we're not really even talking about much of anything.
Spoiler alert. You just gave the end of the novel away.
Yeah, sorry to like
ruin her.
The spoiler at the end of the program is like, and by the way, nothing.
Yeah, we got nothing really
like
to
about
say.
nothing, and it's amazing.
But what you're saying is the truth of it. And that's that feeling, that thing of that empty space or the nothing. It's this feeling.
Yeah. I want to connect it, some of the dots there too, just because I was aware of other people might be listening in on this conversation at some point. Because there's so many meanings of nothing. Like it's not absence, but it's the kind of nothing as in no thing yet. Pure potential. And like this beautiful space, you don't need to ever leave this as you go out and do things and create things.
You know, this, I'm going to connect it to the earlier like that. I feel like we've I feel like I'm going, like we're playing hopscotch and we got to one end of it and now we're going back.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can see is that's when you like are going out and being in the unknown. It's in this field because you know that there's infinite potential here. And you just see what arises from it.
Yeah. And it's like in the middle of life, if there's any, so if I'm ever stuck or worried or bored or like whatever, like there's this space I can always turn to. Always. The psychology doesn't always like turning to it because it's doing that whole projecting onto the wall of fog thing.
I don't think they understand. I think you understand it. I mean, you're used to playing in it. Like you've played in it long enough, you know how it works. And you're comfortable in it.
Yeah.
Like really comfortable and masterful in it. The other thing that I would say about you that I find really interesting is you know when you're there. And you're not in the copy or the pretend village, like the set of it. You know, like you could do a movie set, like if we could go to the country of France or we could have a movie set of it. And so many times in our psychology, we set up the movie set and go, oh, this is the feeling. This is what it's like. But you're used to going to the real thing. And that's what that person was telling you. She could feel it in you.
Yeah. And I was quite masterful at not quite putting on the veneer of the feeling or the space, but the veneer of the concept. I was very good at having a more and more spiritual, broad map,
Mhm.
being able to describe everything. Uh, and I think that also just doing that first, uh, it was a longer and more laborious process doing it that way, but it gave my psychology a little bit more permission so that when I was in the space more, I kind of recognized it. It's like uh, if you like flip through photos of Spain for several years and then you visit Spain, you kind of recognize it. You're not freaked out of like, where am I?
Well, that's the point is I think that what I feel um, with you and what that woman felt is
Hmm? Your videos or my video is paused. How's our network? Are we back?
we are. So, folks, we had I think we blew the system out.
There's so much nothingness that the internet became nothing. We do need a little bit of form. I mean,
We do.
like life just isn't as interesting without form.
No,
Yeah.
the beauty of it, the back and forth. But
Mhm.
I do. It's just what we were talking about is how you know this place. You know how to go to the formless and then bring it into the form. And the feeling is so different. And what gets created is so much more beautiful and more powerful.
Yeah, one of the terms that I have been playing with recently is spiritual integrity.
What does that mean?
So like this space being spirituality, the formless,
Mhm.
um, even before the subtle, even before like energy and karma and like form thing, like subtle forms like that. But integrity being coming from the space, still being centered in the space.
Mhm. Mm.
Like you never actually have to leave the space. It's always there. It's like knowing your center of gravity.
Mhm. Yeah. It reminds me of what you're pointing to is I study Pilates and the Alexander technique, which are
Mm,
both body works. And when you learn how to know your body, you move differently. And what you're pointing to is you know how this space works. So you move from that place. And then there's ease and grace in your life.
mhm.
Doesn't mean that life turns out the way we think, but the way you're moving with it is it's graceful, it's easy, there's a light to it, like a oh God, what's the word? Like a spirit to it.
Like, yeah, I like the word grace, the moment, or miraculous.
Mhm.
Turns out it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe this, but we're actually coming up on our time. This is the fastest. I'm like, holy shit! I just excuse my French, but I just looked up. And so Michael, I think people to work with you are blessed, because I know that their life will be deeply transformed. So how do they find you? It will all be in the bio, but where do you want people to look, etc., if they would like to know more of this space and live from it?
Yeah. So they can visit my website, which is authenticintegrity.com. And you can email me at michael@authenticintegrity.com.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyone who's listening, open invitation to send me an email and just share if something was interesting or impactful or weird or whatever. You can drop me a note.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's truly been an honor. I always love our conversations.
Yeah.
And just that this feeling gets out into the world, we've done good.
Yeah. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you.